grab your coffee because it's time to talk about books. I don't know where that came from. Hey everybody, how are we doing? Welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for being here. Today I am going to tell you all of the books I've read in the month of February. February is that month for me, you know, like it's filled of love. People are in love, sending each other cards and stuff like that, going on virtual dates on Zoom, and I read romance. That's what I do in February. Well, not fully though, but mostly though. The first read that I've had in February is actually not a romance read. It is The Push by Audrey Audrin, I guess. I think that's a French name, so Audrey Audrin. This is a psychological thriller. It's about this couple who decides to have a kid, and the mother ends up feeling that something is really wrong with her kid when she's born, and she doesn't feel connected to the kid the way she's supposed to be connected, the way you're supposed to be connected to your your offspring. You go with her through, like, you know, seeing her kid grow and knowing something's wrong and seeing really weird shit happening around the kid and being like, oh, my kid might be a psychopath. It was very frustrating to read, but very gripping. It's one of those books where if you are waiting for a thriller where action happens and that's very fast-paced in terms of like things that happen, I wouldn't say this is for you. But if you like things that are more psychological from like a more internal point of view, I would highly recommend, because I really enjoyed the writing. The writing felt so compelling to read. I felt very connected to how she described the relationship with her husband. I felt like it was very relatable, and how she describes motherhood, I felt it very beautiful to done. I give it 4 stars. Yeah, it was really great. I feel like I give it 4 just because I really wanted to see a more satisfactory ending, and I didn't get that. The second book that I read is The X-Talk by Rachel Lynn Solomon, and that was a romance, and that was enemies to lovers, and God knows there is nothing I love more than enemies to lovers. A boy and a girl who are working in a radio station that hate the guts of each other. We don't really know why. The radio is basically almost off of business, and to save it they have to come up with a show that's gonna be revolutionary and that's gonna basically attract the views. And so they come up with this kind of like concept, which is to basically pretend to be exes who still are friends and who can have a conversation and who can basically host a like radio show / podcast together. And so you have those two people never been together, but because they hate the gut of each other could easily pass for exes, which is why they end up being the co-hosts for that show. And it was so sweet to see like this kind of like couple kind of like working together to make everyone believe they were once together but they were not, which is basically inventing a narrative, which is kind of like fake dating as well. The banner was great, the chemistry was great. I was very like, it felt very bubbly and happy. I would highly recommend if you're into enemies to lovers, because I really loved it. Plus it's an interracial couple, which I really liked. Dom, I think his name was, is Korean. I really enjoyed it. It was really cute. Then another romance, one that I didn't really like at all, and that was my first 2 stars of the month, was Shipped by Angie Hawkman. It's about, again, it's an enemies to lover. I love how the X-Talk is how you do enemies to lovers in the workplace, and Shipped is how you do not do enemies to lovers in the workplace. So it's about those two kind of co-workers who are both working in marketing and who are basically, they're competing to get the same promotion. And they're working for this, I think, cruise company, so they have to go, the challenge is for them to go on the cruise and come up with a marketing strategy that will be the winning one to get that director of marketing position, I think. And so they go on a cruise, and it has kind of like that honeymooners kind of vibe to it. And first of all, if I like an enemies to lovers, I like an enemies to lovers. I don't don't like it when it's all a misunderstanding that you don't like each other and it's resolved in 5 minutes. And that was basically the promise of this book. They realized they actually liked each other, I would say 40% through, or even 30% through. Like, it was very sweet, but something felt very plasticky, unnatural to it. Like, it felt too pushed that they liked each other. And then there's this other aspect to it. I work in marketing, so for me to read marketing and not cringe at it is really, really hard. Like, I hate, you know, when you see the typical rom-com on Netflix where she works in marketing and she's so successful because she posts a tweet, like it got retweeted by the first lady of France. Bullshit like this doesn't work. It doesn't happen when you work in marketing. And it was not just well done. And there was this whole entire narrative that could have been an entire book on its own that just overtook the romance probably like 60% in. So not for me. I give it 2 stars. I was even generous for that, just because nah. Next one was Faker by Sarah Smith. Another hating like enemies to lovers, and another enemies to lovers in the workplace that I really didn't like. Again, I feel like those books really try to be the hating game, but I should know better to know that there's just one hating game. 2 people that work in the same company. I barely remember why I didn't like it, but I didn't like it at all. Does that happen to you guys? Oh, I feel like it was because it was very toxic. Like, the guy just was overly jealous of anyone that was around her, and he would like cause power tantrums and stuff, and I don't know. It wasn't for me, wouldn't recommend. I give it 2 stars. And the next book that I read was A House of Earth and Blood, Crescent City #1, and oh my god, Sarah J. Maas, oh my god. I didn't think I would like that book as much as I did. This is the story of Bryce. Her best friend gets murdered, basically, as well as her whole entire group of friends. And she is absolutely shattered because her best friend was basically her chosen family. And for 2 years, she grieves the loss of her best friend every single day. And so 2 years after, murders start happening again, and she's being asked to investigate the murder of her best friend. I didn't get the hype until 60% of the book because it was a very slow read. This is a hefty book. It's 1,000 pages long, and for 60% of it, you're like, what's happening? The plot was kind of actually weak to my taste. I feel like what Sarah J. Maas does best is writing characters that are very compelling, and I will come back to this later. But I feel like when it comes to plot, she has good things going on for her, but she doesn't know how to tie it in together, if that makes sense. It feels very loose-ended, and your head goes on different ways and you don't know where to look at. That's what I kind of like felt. The intrigue, the murder intrigue, was not enough for me to be like, oh, I'm on my toes. Past the 70% line, the last 250 pages were amazing. I was just absolutely like engaged, and I went through those pages really, really quick. It's like plot twist after plot twist after plot twist after plot twist, and that was very satisfying to go through, I feel. Bryce is probably, aside from Reese is top tier, but like Bryce is probably my favorite female character of hers, just because she was so strong, she was so independent, she was such a badass. I feel her to be more flawed and more relatable overall. How Sarah J. Maas talks about grief, she does it in such a beautiful way, because you basically grieve with Bryce, and I found that relationship so freaking precious. I don't know, like the loyalty that she has towards her best friend, even when she's dead, like her dedication to find out what happened to her, is absolutely beautiful to witness. She, like the whole overall relationships between her brother, Hunt and stuff, I really liked how everything escalated. So I was really satisfied. I really liked it. I give it 5 stars just because I can't wait to see what happened next. No! No, 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 no! Oh no! Oh no! Oh no, 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 no! Oh Oh no! Oh no! The next book that I read is The Wife Upstairs by Rachel Hawkins. This was a thriller. This is a modern retelling of Jane Eyre, so if you've read Jane Eyre, you might know where the shots are going. This is about this girl named Jane who is basically like a dog walker in a rich neighborhood. She's like a hustler. She does things that are not very proper, I would say. Like she steals to make ends meet. She has a like bad girl kind of like side, and then she ends up meeting Mr. Perfect in the neighborhood, ends up eventually kind of manipulating him into a relationship, twisting the right ropes, and eventually having him propose to her. And while all of this is happening, there is also the backstory of his wife disappeared, I think a year or 2 years ago, and no one knows what happened to her and her best friend. They both disappeared at the same time. No one knows what happened, and you eventually start discovering what happened to her, I think mid-book, because you get different points of views playing basically, which could also, I enjoyed the writing, but I felt like having those point of views kind of like mixed like this was a little bit kind of confusing at times. It was fine. I mean, if you read Jane Eyre, you might know where the story is going, so not so much like, it's not like, oh my god, what's gonna happen, you know what I mean? But yeah, it wasn't bad. I give it 4 stars. Next book that I read is No Rules Rules, Netflix and the Culture of Reinvention. This is more of a business read about Netflix and their culture and why they made it as far as they did, and what were the keys of success for them, and what were what made them Netflix basically. And I really enjoyed knowing more about that culture. It was really funny because I learned a lot of things in this, and I feel like I even applied some stuff to my own professional life, so I'm definitely glad I read that. They talk about how Netflix is all about like no limit vacation, like you get full freedom and full responsibility, but it's also very competitive, and also it's all about feedback, so people are constantly like giving feedback to each other in a very blunt way sometimes. So yeah, it was definitely interesting to read more about Netflix, since it's such a big part of everyone's life nowadays. The last read that I read was and I have the physical copy, was A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J. Maas, which is Nesta's story, and I have a reading vlog coming soon of my live reaction to it, and I think that it'll do a way better job of telling you how I felt about it. I loved reading Nesta's story. Nesta is such a badass. I never not liked Nesta. I was always intrigued by her and what's wrong with her and why is she so bitter. So I really enjoyed reading her story and reading what's behind that brain of hers and why she acts the way she does. And I loved how it felt very relatable, honestly, because it touches a lot about self-worth, self-love, not believing that you're worthy of love, shutting everyone off just because you don't feel deserving of them, and of him too. I loved the new characters that were introduced. I'm very particular about characters, and if you're gonna give me like new characters when I'm already so attached to the old one, you better do it good, and that was really well done. Same as Crescent City though, I felt like there was too much going on in the story. Like you had to focus on the character, her growth, how she's doing, and how she's evolving all through the story. But they had like literally 3 different storylines going on at the same time. They had like Farah's oh, I can't say that, that's a fucking like spoiler, sorry. Okay, something happens to Farah, and that's like a part of the story. Then we have the Trove, which is the main kind of like object that they have to go after. Then we have the whole like Valkyrie and like women kind of warrior kind of storyline, and I felt like there was too much going on, and I felt like Sarah J. Maas really didn't know how to tie it in together to have it flow nicely. But I loved Cassian. I loved reading more about Cassian, getting to know him, getting to see his soft side and his emotionally intelligent side, because no one knows Nesta like Cassian does. I loved reading more of Azriel. I loved knowing more about Azriel, Rhys's and Cassian's story more, and about their brotherhood and why they're so tied together. I loved reading the other side of the story rather than always being focused on Rhys and Farah, and that's saying a lot because I love Rhys so much. And I have a lot of thoughts, and I really cannot wait until I can read Azriel's story. If Sarah J. Maas ever see this, please write Azriel's story and do not make him end with Elaine. This is my only demand. And if you want to know more about this book, well, you gotta watch my reading vlog because it's all in there. But I really loved it. It was really sweet. I loved Nesta, I loved Cassian, I loved the characters. As I said in my previous videos, reading them feels like just getting a hug. So I really needed that hug because I had 2 really bad weeks, so I'm really grateful that I read. And that was the last book that I read in February. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I really hope that you enjoyed. If you have read any of the book that I have talked about in this video, let me know in the comments down below and let me know how you felt about it, if we have the same opinion somehow, or if I am, you know, talking shit as always. And that's about it, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!